He was running right at the goalie, and he reared back and kicked that thing so hard, he hit the goalie right in the stomach. And when they fell down, he said you could lift up his shirt and read on his stomach, inflate to 9 pounds. What?
Welcome.
Oh, here we go.
Welcome to the Low Grade Research Podcast.
Any revelations lately? Any big thoughts? Anything you realized?
Thoughts? Ooh, that's a good question.
In your own personal life of low grade research, anything you've personally found?
Yeah.
Because I got mine, baby, locked and loaded.
Yeah?
Yep.
I guess something that I'd had known about previously, but then it was just once again reiterated. And this isn't like revolutionary, but kind of a cool tidbit fact. I've been doing in my physiology class. We've been learning about different channels and different micronutrients that are necessary for opening channels. And one that we've talked about recently is calcium-gated channels, and just the importance that calcium plays in muscle contraction.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about that, and then in line with like, how often are people where are they getting their sufficient calcium intake to properly have this muscle function?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because my wife has it's not heavy, but she has like some minor lactose intolerance stuff. And just recently we've been like trying out like raw milk, because when milk is pasteurized, it takes out the lactase, which breaks down the lactose that's in milk. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people that have lactose intolerance can actually drink raw milk. So anyway, we tried that, and she didn't seem to have any gut issues with it.
Wow.
And so she got all excited because she's like, I used to love drinking milk and the taste of milk. And she's like, I've got that back again. You know?
Nice.
So then
and that's good for you too, because you can drink a gallon of milk in a sitting.
Oh gosh,
It's disgusting.
Not a problem at all.
I'm the same way though. So
But anyway, I was just kind of thinking about that, and I was like, well, if you have that problem, so I know there's other stuff out there, but I think the majority of us think like, oh, we get our calcium from basically dairy-related products, milk and cheese like that. And I know it's found in other things, but I think most people only recognize that it's in those things. I'm like, well, where are people getting their calcium intake? Because even if you're not like, that's an important nutrient to have for function. So
right.
it was just kind of like something I've been thinking about a little bit lately. Anyway.
That's cool.
So nothing deep, nothing crazy, but get your calcium, folks.
Get your calcium, folks.
It aids in muscle contraction, so helps with your power output. Get you stronger. One glass at a time.
One glass at a time. One cow at a time. Yeah, dude, I took that physiology class. I remember talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
Yeah,
it functions
really
very
cool
similar to like sodium channels in the brain, like neurons and stuff.
Totally. It's basically, I think of it as it's basically the neuron channels, but of the muscles specifically, right?
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
That's not insignificant.
Yeah, kind of a cool.
Our bodies are built
tidbit,
upon
right?
salts.
That's the other thing too. When you really recognize like how important salt and different electrolytes are, it's like every meal I'm like, I need to have salt in there.
Yeah.
Because they're so important in neuron firing and trains of neurons sending messages. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
And then I also heard somewhere, I know some people struggle with like salt and their sodium intake just because it affects blood pressure and stuff.
Sure.
But I want to say, well, I'll have to look up this, so don't take my word for it. Maybe do some Googling. When you have a sufficient calcium intake, it negates those negative effects that people often experience from high sodium intake.
Interesting.
So if your calcium and sodium levels are kind of, meeting each other, then you don't get those negative things that a lot of people associate with a high sodium intake.
Interesting.
So Kind of cool stuff.
Take it for what it's worth.
Yeah.
This makes me think of because one of the big places we get electrolytes is just tap water,
Sure.
just regular water. You know what I mean? Because
Sure.
you have all those minerals in your water. We live in Utah, so we have very hard water, which is chock full of minerals. And then, we got a couple of friends that we found out were drinking distilled water because they felt like it was more pure. And I guess in a sense that it is. You know what I mean?
Not wrong. They're not wrong, but
But it was. I think actually, now that we're talking about this, I think I had just learned about all this stuff in my physiology class.
Oh, really?
Before we had hung out with them. And so, we had that conversation. You were there. We had that conversation about how you need to drink actual water because you're depriving yourself of a huge bucket of these nutrients that you need, right?
Exactly. Minerals. And the way your body's able to hold on to the water, the hydration, is with the electrolytes it gets. So if you don't have the sodium and the potassium and some of those other ones, your body doesn't actually retain the water that you're drinking.
Yeah.
So it's kind of why so caffeine's a diuretic.
Yeah.
And it moves water through you so quickly because it also moves sodium through you quickly. And so because you're now low on sodium, as soon as you're drinking that water, that's moving through you just as quick, if not quicker. So you've got to have that stuff.
You got to have that good stuff.
So put a little salt on your dinner tonight.
Yeah.
And then go for a walk if you're worried about it.
Yeah.
I think we all need to move
maybe
a little
go for a walk anyway.
Yeah.
It actually has to do, this whole thing has to do with kind of my tidbit. So you think about if you lived the rest of your life the same way you lived the last 2 weeks or the last 3 weeks or whatever, what results would you get and what stuff would you have missed out on because you did the same old habits that you've been doing. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know. This is all a little bit out there. And I probably should have spent just a tiny bit more time thinking about it before I started spewing it. But I don't know. It's I think we live a lot in instant gratification with a lot of the choices that we make.
Totally.
And when I start personally thinking about consequences and gratification of the things that I'm doing, it changes how important those things are to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And stuff that's I spent an hour on Instagram today. It cannot be overstated how little that will do for me for the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So am I going to spend an hour on Instagram every day for the rest of my life? No, you know what I mean? When I think about it that way, it's that's a lot of time that I've just wasted now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, think about long-term gratification instead of short-term.
No, I like that. I think you illustrated that pretty well. Because I think sometimes I struggle with the same thing. What is this? If I were to change this one habit into something else that takes the exact same amount of time, how much farther would I get?
Yeah.
In something, because what is it? Someone said I'd have to do the math, but it's if you spent 20 minutes a day doing something, then by the end of the year, you've put 100 hours into that thing.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So it's I love music, and if I were to spend 20 minutes, even 3 days of the week, putting some time into studying, practicing music, that's 50 hours,
right?
50 plus hours of time and effort I've put into that craft.
Yeah.
And how much farther could I be with that if I would just change 20 minutes of social media scrolling or watching YouTube into 20 minutes of playing guitar, or doing something on the piano. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think about that sometimes, and I think I forget about doing that sometimes. Well, you want to hear about today's topic?
Hit me. What do we got?
Okay, so we're on the letter C.
Okay.
And there was a couple.
The letter C of what?
Of the alphabet.
Great. Do you want to remind everybody what we're doing?
So this season we're doing obsolete occupations.
The alphabet.
So this season we're doing obsolete occupations. So jobs that no longer exist because there's no longer a need for them. And we've moved on to the letter C. And there was a couple in this one that I wanted to do.
Okay.
Some of them were just honestly too short to even make a decent
there's a lot of those.
episode out of them, right?
The Wikipedia page is like 5 sentences long.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, well, we had a thought about this, and thanks for tuning in. So I had to find one that was long enough, but not too long, just to get some cool facts and information out about it. But some of the ones that I wanted to do or that I thought were interesting is the first one was cigarette girls.
Ooh.
Right? So back in the day, really popular in like the 20s and 30s.
Okay.
Cigarette girls would walk around like popcorn vendors at baseball games and sell cigarettes.
Nice. With like the little tray hanging around their neck or whatever?
Exactly. Just like that.
Cool.
They'd be at, well, not necessarily at bars because they kind of got popular around the time of speakeasies and during Prohibition and stuff. But they'd be at restaurants, sporting events, different things like that. But then that's all there is to it.
Just an attractive lady selling cigs?
Just attractive ladies with cartons of cigarettes hanging around their necks.
Hey, man.
So it was a simpler time.
That could be worse.
It could be a lot worse.
Except neither of us smoke.
Well, and I think they got rid of them is because they realized they didn't want so many people smoking around each other in such close vicinity.
You want to be blowing cigarette smoke into like a toddler's face at a baseball game?
Can you even imagine like that? Like,
or like the days on a plane or whatever?
Yeah, when they would smoke on a plane.
And then even when they went to...
I think that's where clouds come from.
It might be where clouds come from. All right, that's the dad joke of the pod today. Even when they made like separated areas on planes for smoking and non-smoking, but like you're still in the same metal tube.
Separated area on a plane.
No, you're all just smelling everybody else's breath the whole time.
The only separated area is the cabin, is the captain's cabin.
Yep.
And
then
he's not like
kind of first class with that wimpy little curtain.
With the shower curtain in between you.
It's insane to me. And I know this is way off topic now, but like how like uppity people in first class are when you get on a plane.
Totally.
Because it's like, who the F cares that you're sitting on a seat that's 2 seats in front of me?
Good for
that's
you.
An inch wider than my seat, and you have this little curtain to separate. But people like act like they are vastly superior to everybody else because they paid for a ticket that was 3 times the price.
I know, man. My wife always says, she's like, I can't wait to, she doesn't normally fly first class, but she has done it before.
Oh, cool.
And she's like, I can't wait to take you on a first class trip. And I was like, that's something I've never even thought about.
Yeah. You're
that's like, just way out of my pay grade.
My family has always been under the plane.
If it's not separated by an ocean, we'll drive.
Dude. Amen.
That's my family's thought.
A lot of long trips. No, for real, dude.
So,
although I will say, I took a train ride through.
I'd love to do a train trip.
It was through from Boston up to Portland, Maine.
Cool.
Just through the woods, and I paid for the business class ticket because coach was like $20 and business class was $40.
Yeah,
for a 4-hour train ride or whatever.
Worth it.
I was like, screw it, dude. I'll pay for the one because it will be a bigger seat, and it was like an armchair, like
pretty significant,
like a recliner. It was like that big.
Sweet.
And it was in the car that I was in. There was a row of 2 seats on the right side, and then a row of 1 seat on the left side. So I chose a seat on the left side, so I didn't have to sit by anybody.
Yeah,
it was wonderful. And it was just like a train ride through the woods, and this guy kept serving drinks to us the whole time we were going.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it was great.
Honestly, sounds incredible. So anyway, I decided not to go with cigarette girls for our topic. The next one I wanted to talk about was,
After all that. You didn't even say thanks for sharing or anything.
Thanks for sharing.
I'm invested. Okay, so anyway.
Your boring train story.
Back to the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about.
The next topic I thought about talking about was court dwarfs.
Okay.
Yeah. I know, this one didn't even make the cut. And
how?
It should have. We might have to come back and talk about it. There's just a long history of it, but court dwarfs, and this isn't specific to a single country. It sounds like it was most of Europe and Asia. But people would own dwarfs and trade them amongst different people of the courts.
So we should put in here, because we know that that community doesn't like to be called dwarfs, right?
Correct.
So we're just referencing the Wikipedia page.
Yeah,
they like to call that. They like to be referred to as little people.
Mm-hmm. And
I guess sometimes it seems like there's like a resurgence of the word dwarf coming back anyway.
Is it dwarf or is it the other one?
Well,
should I say it? Anyway,
on this segment of Too Cool to Cancel, Mitch is going to go ahead and start with some slurs.
I'm just going to make my way down the list.
Jeez, dude.
But anyway, yeah, they were given as gifts to kings and queens, just from other monarchies and things like that.
Slavery in a royal court.
Yeah, but just kind of like as a novelty, like
weird.
Like, hey, we're from this country. Like, you want some of our? This is what our money looks like. You want to trade? It's like, I've got this really short person. Thanks for having us over for dinner.
Wow.
Maybe not that casual, but like it was mostly.
Okay, for all we know, though, it could have been that casual.
I mean, maybe. But they were, and it says that they were made to stand right next to the king or queen in all their court appearances when they were addressing the public and doing ceremonies. It was
weird.
It was almost like they just had this like little right hand.
It's like a weird little badge of honor to have.
A little bit, yeah. A
little person standing beside you.
Yeah. They really were just like an ornate little decorative piece.
Wow.
So very interesting. And we honestly might come back to this one. I didn't read a ton through it because I knew I wasn't going to present on it
We should just do a cut for time episode at the end.
Oh, I love it. So then the next one that I thought about doing, this one sounded very interesting, but this job was called a castrado.
Okay.
Any guesses on what it might entail?
Is it like a moil?
No. They are...
It's a Spanish moil. Castrado.
So they are...
I don't feel like you're laughing hard enough for this clever joke I just came up with.
They're kind of like on the receiving end of what a moil might do. But then they had jobs because of that.
So their job was to get castrated?
Yes.
What?
Okay, so a castrado is a male singer who underwent a castration before puberty in order to retain the high octave singing voice.
They still do that.
Do they really?
Yeah. You keep talking, I'll see if I can find it. But I'm pretty sure that there's
a
like
section on it
choir in the Vatican that is this.
Vienna Boys Choir?
Is that what you just read?
No.
Oh.
I think that's just an actual boys choir.
Oh, I was like, that might be, dude.
Of young men.
Except I think that they're older men that have been castrated.
A male can retain his child voice if it never changes during puberty. So if you get rid of those puberty-inducing organs, they'll keep that range of voice and have a long-term job in the choir.
Oh, it looks like it's not a thing anymore.
Well, thank goodness.
Which, as I'm saying that, shouldn't have required a Google search.
But they were important enough for these choirs that they were like, hey, if we castrate them early enough, we can keep that range and they can hold their chair in the choir and have a long-term job.
Should we see if we can find a quick video? See what it sounds like?
Of how they do it?
No.
I mean, I'm sure it just sounds like a young boy singing, but I guess would he still look? How young would he still look?
Probably a little Benjamin Buttoned, I would imagine.
Maybe.
Let's see. So that high voice was supposed to be, and who knows, this is YouTube, so like... that
was supposed to be a young man.
Yeah.
Really?
So it's a castrato. This is a video claiming to be a recording from a castrato singing.
Wow.
So there you go, quite high.
Quite high. Impressive. Very impressive.
Good range. It takes me back to men's choir in high school. You and I had that class together.
We did.
Remember when the teacher was trying to find our range? And you have a unique ability among the people I know to jump in your singing range. And when you jump the gap, that's too high for you, you go from singing a completely normal voice to like screeching like a dying crow. And I remember standing at that piano next to her. There were like 3 or 4 of us, and she was trying to find our range. And you jumped into the crow. She looked at you, man. What? Like, what demon hath hell unleashed?
I wish I remembered that.
Oh, it was good.
Oh, that's hilarious.
We should do a whole podcast episode on those shenanigans we got up to in that class.
Choir. High school choir.
So we're not talking about castratos?
We're not talking about castratos.
They just got an honorary mention?
They just got an honorary mention because it's interesting enough.
Oh, yeah.
That it should be mentioned. And you can look that up on your own time. And then clear your search history.
Are you telling me or telling people listening to this?
I'm telling our listeners.
Oh, I'm the guy can't do it?
Yeah, well, it sounds like you already looked it up.
Oh, no, I just looked up if they still exist. I did find the video.
I wonder if there's 1 or 2 still out there.
Lucky for me, we're at the university and I'm logged in under your credentials. So
terrific.
Any weird search history is going to come back to you and not me.
I was just thinking about like, I wondered if there's any of these people's like ancestors that are around to tell. But then I was like, well, if they had their testicles cut off at a young age, they don't have any.
They probably wouldn't have ancestors.
They don't have any posterity.
Although, well, they wouldn't, but they would probably have like nieces and nephews, right?
It's true.
Who could still probably talk about it, or at least
when
pass stories down.
When was the last one?
The Last Castrato? Wouldn't that make for a great movie?
It's a great movie title. The last castrati was Alessandro Moreschi, who died in 1924. So a while.
So 1924, that's old enough that there are people that could be
100
alive.
years ago.
People that are alive today that would
maybe.
Well, maybe not directly know him. That'd be a stretch. But
maybe he has a great niece or nephew that's still alive.
Yeah, could be.
Okay, so that wasn't it either. And the more we talk about these, the more I'm like, oh man, I'm just getting everyone excited about these cool topics, and then I hope the one I decided to actually talk about is cool enough to keep you interested. So we'll see.
It won't be, dude.
So the topic that we're going to talk a little bit more about today is called, or the job is called Chasqui.
Chasqui.
I believe that's how it's pronounced.
Like jet ski?
Not quite like jet ski,
okay.
But Chasqui.
Chasqui?
Maybe jet ski really fast. So we're talking about the Chasqui.
Okay.
Now, this is a specific job that was relative to the Incan Empire.
Okay.
So we're talking about Inca.
Gosh, that's old. When did the Incan Empire exist?
Oh, man. You want to dive into that? It was around in the 13th century.
So the year 1400.
So 1400s. Man, what a time to be alive, honestly. There's a lot of stuff happening. Columbus, Incas.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy to think about, huh?
Yeah,
Columbus
right?
was doing his thing. Columbus was busy committing freaking genocide with guns and germs.
Oh, yeah.
While the Incan Empire was
just out there doing his thing. Just spreading
smallpox to populations that didn't have a
spreading smallpox and STIs.
Yikes, dude. We should do a whole episode on Columbus.
On Columbus?
On STIs. This season on Low Grade Research Podcast.
How to avoid
STIs.
So the Chasqui, I guess I never even said what Chasqui was.
Nope.
Buckle up.
All right.
So the Chasqui was a messenger of the Incan Empire.
Okie doke.
So, and this is cool because, this is obviously in a time when they didn't have high
life expectancy.
The technology, but also just the technology for communication was very low.
Okay, sure.
Right? So the Chasqui were young, generally young, but agile, highly trained, and physically fit men that would carry messages, basically transport messages to where they needed to be sent to.
Like through the mountains?
So it was kind of like, yes and no. So the way it kind of worked was like this. So and they would deliver both verbal messages and oftentimes like packages.
Okay.
And there was also a form of messages that we'll talk about in a minute.
So like the first version, the founding father, as it were, founding grandfather of a bike messenger.
almost like I want to say it's like an even more primitive version of the Pony Express.
Okay.
Right. So the way it worked was because at the time the ruler of the Incan Empire was very paranoid.
Sure.
About maintaining his empire, right?
Of course.
And so he wanted near daily communication from the different regions, the different chiefs on how things were.
Sure.
So he wanted to develop a system to increase communication. And they hadn't figured out carrier pigeons yet. So they came up with the Chasqui. So
birds hadn't even been invented.
Birds weren't even, people were like, what's a bird?
Yeah.
And
no idea. The U.S. government hadn't invented them.
They had to wait thousands of years before the government would implant them in parks in New York City.
Implant them on that one gross dude sitting on a park bench in New York City. Have I showed you that picture?
No.
We'll have to share it to the Instagram. The one and only time I've been to New York, we went to Central Park, and there was this dude sitting on a bench who like became one with the birds. Okay, I'll show you the picture after this. But like he had like covered himself in like bird feed, and so there were like 50 pigeons on him, like 50 of them. So they were on his arms, his chest. He was just like laying back on this bench, and they were all over his arms and his head and stuff. And
that would make me so uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, and they're all moving around and stuff, dude. And pigeons are just rats of the sky.
They really are, man.
They're not noble.
Oh my gosh, dude. So my brother-in-law and my sister, I think they still do, but they raised pigeons for a while.
Okay. Like to eat?
No, not to eat.
Or
so
to
my brother-in-law trains dogs.
Yep.
General obedience as well as like hunting training. So he started breeding them for like hunting training purposes.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And I think some of them for like carrier pigeon type stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, when they first started, they just gotten married. They'd been married for a little bit. And my sister sends out this text like, hey, we have some exciting news. And I'm like, all right, they're pregnant.
Yeah.
And she sends this picture of, we've got pigeons. And I said, what the heck? You got me all excited. I'm about to be an uncle, and you just started collecting rats of the sky to keep in a shed out in the field behind your house. That was the biggest letdown ever.
Yeah, dude,
I was
it
furious.
always will be the biggest letdown ever.
I was furious.
That's hilarious.
Anyway, we're done talking about pigeons.
Yeah, well, we don't have to be.
Even if you believe in them.
A good resource to learn more about pigeons is going to be the Wikipedia article on pigeons.
Yeah. Or the birds aren't real homepage.
On Twitter.
Check them out.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, this emperor
don't go to Twitter, by the way.
Of the Inkies.
There's nothing good on there.
Yeah, it's called X now, so go to X. So this... we're going to try and circle back here and say, well,
are we?
We're talking about the Incan emperor. And his name... Now, bear with us, because some of these names are tricky.
Alejandro de Pascual.
No, because that's Spanish. This was before the Spanish influence.
Oh, yeah, huh?
Right? This was before Spain even had come to the Americas.
Gosh, Spain really ripped through the Americas,
they really did,
didn't they?
though. They really did.
They really left their mark.
Yeah. They did some real damage. Anyway, this emperor's name was...
Let's pause for just a moment for a quick ad break.
We're talking about the Incan emperor Pachacuri Inca Yupanqui.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're looking at...
Get out of here, you punky.
So this is kind of cool because I knew some people.
You knew the Yupanquis?
I did. Okay, so kind of. So
okay.
I knew a family on my... So I served a 2-year service mission for my church.
Okay.
In the great state of Minnesota.
All right.
In the great state of Minnesota, there's actually a large population of Ecuadorian immigrants.
Wow.
And we knew a family from Ecuador, and their last name was Yupanqui. And they were from a very, very remote area of Ecuador. Her first language was not Spanish.
Wow.
Her first language was something called Quechua, which I'll actually reference a couple times in this. So she had to learn... Well, she learned Quechua as her first language, and then she learned Spanish when they kind of like started integrating a little bit. And then when she moved to the United States, she's now trying to learn English. She's trying to learn English through Spanish, her second language.
Should we do a whole season on how the Spanish originated in the Americas and the influence that it had?
That'd be a cool series.
Well, let's do it.
So anyway, the Emperor Yupanqui, the lettering's changed a little bit because he spells it Q-U-I at the end, but this family I knew spelled it G-U-I.
Okay.
So like a little bit of change, but I mean,
lost in
similar
time,
enough,
probably.
Yeah, just changing in time.
That's 400 years.
Needed ways to communicate with his emperors in the regions around. So he developed this system of communication using these men called Chasqui. And the way it worked was messages would be given to these young men, either verbally or through this kind of really cool, interesting thing called a kipa.
Oh, so they just whip them with belts?
Or it's called a kipu. No belts involved.
So they get told verbally, or they get...
You forget it, don't come back.
Oh, yikes.
So so they would set up stations every 2.5 kilometers, or roughly about 1.6 miles, that these men would run and deliver the message to the next station. From there, a young man that was stationed there would receive the message and then relay it and run it up to the next station. So it was just kind of like a big game of telephone.
Yeah.
But with...
So basically passing the baton.
Exactly.
An Olympic sport,
and sometimes
plus cross country.
Exactly. Sometimes there was a little literal object to pass on. So let me see if I can find this. So yeah, roughly every 2.5 kilometers, they'd be switched out with a fresh messenger, and then he would make the next leg of the journey, and then so forth until it got to wherever it needed to go. And this method of communication was actually super efficient. Because they could deliver a message or like a parcel or gift up to 300 kilometers a day.
Wow.
Just cooking it.
No kidding.
Because I mean, if you think of a young man that's in decent shape, and obviously he can run this distance, 1.5-ish, he's doing that in 10-ish minutes.
Okay, but we're also talking about the Incan Empire, right? Which is going to be like I think as you've been explaining this, I've been thinking about like really flat surfaces that these dudes are running through, and that there's none of this is flat.
Not all of it's going to be flat, no. And I mean, they'd developed roads and road systems for sure. So it wasn't like they were just running through straight jungle, but still.
They're going to be like going up crazy inclines and stuff.
You're in Peru.
Switchbacks.
You're in Ecuador. You're in
Razorbacks,
Colombia.
Diamondbacks.
Because the Incan Empire ran all the way from, South Peru, even into like parts of Chile, all the way up to Colombia, and I think maybe even parts of Venezuela. It's like a good chunk of the west coast of what we know as South America was part of the Incan Empire.
Yeah, from my map, I'm seeing that it went basically from, I don't know, about halfway through Argentina, clear up to like Colombia, Ecuador and Colombia, right?
Yep. So that part of Colombia was called, oh crap, I wrote this down. Where did I write it down? It had a name. It was kind of a region of a kingdom. It was called the New Kingdom of Granada.
Okay.
It was kind of the region. So, and kind of a cool fact as far as like the efficiency of this, and I gotta find where it says it too, but basically they claimed, and when this system was running perfectly, and each pit stop, it wasn't just a kid like sitting in a field waiting for the next spot, but at each of these checkpoints they had a physical hut. So that the boys could rest, get out of the shade.
Yeah, nice.
Get
out of the shade?
Yeah, get out of the shade and get in that sun.
Get into the sun.
Getting that nice leathery
nice
skin
tan
that we all love. Get out of the
look
sun.
Like that 85-year-old woman at Venice Beach.
Running. Just running.
Leather.
So
just a running handbag.
They said, I've got to find it, because basically they said that the efficiency of this method of communication was so good and well organized that they could take from this new kingdom of Granada in Colombia, so like think Bogota, Colombia.
Okay.
They could take a snail or a slug from New Granada down to Cusco without it drying out.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was their claim. So super efficient, super fast, and it worked super well.
Okay, just for the sake of finding out, let's go Cusco, Peru. I'm just looking it up on Google Maps from Bogota to Cusco. It's outside my current coverage area for biking. When did I select biking?
Too dangerous.
What's a coverage area for a bike?
Get it.
If there's land, you can bike, my dude. Okay, so that is, from the roads that exist now. So this is not as a crow flies, right?
Sure.
Which probably would be a little bit closer as a crow flies if they were doing it this way. But like if you're on modern roads now, that's 3,980 kilometers.
That's insane. That's over 1,000 miles.
To keep, that's like that's probably like 2,200 miles maybe?
16.
Oh, no, you're right. It's probably closer to 16.
miles or something. Well, 2.5 kilometers is 1.6 miles. So
yeah.
You're over 1,600.
So it's about 2,400. So I was close.
Yeah, crazy. Crazy. And I'm sure a lot of the roads they have now are based off of roads that were put in place, because
that's probably safe to say
something that keeps coming up is just how efficient and ahead of their time this region was for their road system.
Sure.
So very advanced for the time.
So just to swing back, so you're saying that they claimed they could take a slug from Bogota to Cusco, Peru, which is 2,500 miles away, without it drying out.
That's correct.
That's unbelievable.
Crazy, right? Crazy.
It begs the question, how long does it take for a slug to dry out?
It does. And we're going to do a full episode on slugs.
Maybe that's like a 2-month period, and this is not really that impressive. Or they had a guy at each hut salting it as they went through, just to add an extra challenge.
To add the challenge?
Oh, yeah. You about to tell me not to salt a slug?
Salt. Or maybe this was the test the king gave them, the emperor gave them, to see how efficient the system was.
And killed everybody that couldn't do it.
Yeah, and they just kept giving him new slugs at each checkpoint. He's going to kill us.
He's going to kill us. Get that slug right there and
run. There's a brand new slug.
Yep.
Put it in this bowl of water and run. Don't slosh it.
Don't stop.
For the love of God. So these Chasquis would deliver a couple types of messages.
Okay.
The first being a verbal message, and I guess I should preface too. So, when they would take off on their runs, they would wear basically these weaved sun hats.
Okay. So like what your dad wears every day.
Exactly.
Out in the garden.
Picture your 55-year-old dad working out in the garden. He no longer cares about his appearance.
Nope.
So he's just
gave up on it 20 years ago.
He's wearing functionality.
Yeah.
It's hard to even call it clothing or style.
He's basically an exercise in functionality at this point.
So that's what these men were wearing. The purpose being, one, to have a little bit of shade and sun protection, but two, it also would
aerodynamic.
It was high. I would argue it was not.
They ran fast enough they could float off the ground a couple inches.
But it was a great visual for the next station to see that someone was coming.
Sure.
In addition to that, oftentimes they would also carry shells or conchas with them.
Yeah.
As like a horn to signal, hey, I'm coming. Get your next guy warmed up. I've got a message to pass on.
Get that guy doing jumping jacks.
Exactly.
Yep. Put his shoes on.
Start stretching, Butch.
Butch. Weirdly enough, everyone at that time was named Butch.
Yeah, it's a very
the Incan Empire.
From the Incas.
Butch, said just like that without any Spanish accent or Incan accent at all.
Hola, Butch.
Hey, Butch.
Except they didn't say hola. Spain didn't take over yet.
Oh, that's true.
So they would deliver both oral messages, and when they would get to their checkpoints, they would repeat it several times to the next messenger, so they would get it right. Because a lot of these were important, right? Some of these messages were going back to the emperor.
Sure.
And then the other way that they would deliver messages was through something called a quipu, which is a really primitive recording device. And I'll show you a picture here, and this is something we'll have to post up on our Instagram. But this is a quipu.
So it looks like a necklace.
Yeah. So basically, think of a necklace with different strings tied to it of varying lengths.
So like a yarn necklace, basically, except
Exactly.
none of the yarn is tied on the necklace end and then just kind of goes out.
Exactly. And the method behind this was that the different lengths of string in different order represented something differently.
Okay.
And a lot of times it was also something that wasn't taught to just common people. So usually people in power and royalty that knew how to read these things. So it could be given to one of these young men.
Oh, like a secret message.
More or less.
So if you're the emperor or the governor of one area and you want to send a secret message to, say, an attractive governor of another area, you don't want the guy running the message across to be able to know what you're talking about.
You don't need that information getting leaked and then have a scandal on your hands.
Amen, dude. Because Twitter was in full swing at this point and people were going to track it down. Not to mention...
Twitter was young men running through the jungle.
And it was weirdly still as political and racist as it is now. I will say... we'll be right back.
Oh, man.
And we're back. That was a very good professional break we just took, don't you think?
Thanks for listening to a quick message from someone that's not yet sponsoring us. But we hope so.
Someday.
We hope so. We're close on a couple
Legit,
of these.
we want enough out of this to get a couple of meals a month, and that's basically all we're looking for.
Anyway, I'm just looking for something I wrote down here. My notes are all over the place today.
So you were telling me about this necklace that they would create, and
That's
then
right.
it would be kind of a coded message from one area to the next.
Correct. And they were used for several different things. A lot of times they were used for just kind of general data collecting, monitoring tax obligations, collecting census records, calendar type information, and military organization. So they were used for a lot of different things.
So kind of like the functionality of the empire, basically.
I mean, have you ever heard of an abacus?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a lot like that,
Okay.
or could be. But
Who knows?
in a lot of these pictures I'm seeing...
Your guess is as good as mine.
In a lot of these pictures I'm seeing, there's not only different lengths of string, but there's also different colors of string. There's knots tied into the string at varying lengths as well. So all of these things were kind of the different methods of relaying information.
Okay.
And obviously it's string, so it's super easy to transport. And as long as it's intact, you can deliver important information regarding a variety of things to different chiefs in different regions and stuff, right? So especially for the time, a pretty highly effective way to communicate and deliver information.
Cool.
So
Very cool
stuff. Pretty cool. And yeah, like I said before, all of this was because the emperor wanted an effective way. I mean, he just got his kingdom.
Yeah.
And he needed an effective way to protect that. But
can I ask? So I don't want to derail too bad. So those things that look like the picture you showed me looked like a necklace.
Yeah.
Did they wear them around their neck like a necklace?
No. So they weren't actually fully tied all the way around. I think mostly because like you got to know where the message starts, where it ends, type of thing. So I'm guessing they would just put it in a pouch or hold it in their hand and then run with it.
What happens if it tangles up?
I mean, good luck. It's like it's kind of like
you better hope it wasn't that important and it was you who did it.
It's kind of like when you get those like confusing texts from a girl that you like the relationship hasn't been defined, and she texts you something
like your wife.
Yeah, and she texts you something like, "Where you at?
You up?"
And you're like, "Am I up? We live together. What is this supposed to mean?
I'm in the next room.
I'm home. Where? If I'm home, where are you?
Are you?"
So I'll bet they took great care in making sure they didn't get tangled up.
I'm sure they did.
So,
especially if it involved like military movements or whatever,
Yeah, that's pretty important.
You're not going to get your head cut off because you were the idiot that screwed that up.
That's pretty specific information.
Very specific.
So, oftentimes these young men weren't available, or they tired out.
Okay.
Or just
they died of fatigue. Oh, okay.
Yes, a mile and a half is a long way for someone today to run.
That's true, especially if you're going up and down wicked hills.
Oh man, yeah. So in case of emergencies, they had different stations set up where bonfires would be used during the night.
Okay.
Smoke columns were used during the day to communicate really important things like an invasion or an uprising in a region, right?
Okay. Something that had to travel way faster.
Something they had to know immediately. So according to the Inca Garciaso, the Inca would receive the distress message, and this is, well, let me see here. Oh yeah, this is regarding the fire system that they used.
Okay.
So the Inca would receive the distress message within 2 or 3 hours at the most.
Wow.
Even if it was 500 or 600 leagues away, which is roughly 250 to 300 kilometers, or 160 to 190 miles away.
Wow.
So they had all these stations set up so that
in 2 to 3 hours they would get it back.
They could know of
that's phenomenal.
Something happening 200 miles away in just 2 hours. And this is back when the fastest thing they ever saw was a Jaguar.
Yeah.
And you couldn't ride those.
Right.
Still can't.
You still can't. No, you can try. Many brave men have.
Boy, can you try.
Yep.
So anyway, so that's kind of the basis of the Chasqui. Their important role. So, and then we can dive into all kinds of things as far as like different emperors and chiefs and kind of how they used them in things.
No, I think I'm good.
It sounds like some of them even use them for delivering like food.
Okay.
So like they would people closer to the sea would catch fresh fish and then give them to these Chasqui, and they would deliver them several miles inland to people that didn't have as easy access and deliver fresh fish and things like that.
Does it say that? Does it say why they use these guys instead of like a horse or something? Wouldn't that be faster?
So they didn't actually have. So horses. This isn't in the article, but horses aren't native to North and South America. So they didn't actually get brought over until the Spanish started invading the Americas.
Okay.
So, I mean, and you think about things that are native to the area, there's really nothing that they would have there's nothing big enough that could tow like a wagon or anything like that.
Sure.
Right? It was just slaves.
Yikes, so, dude. Slaves and Chasquis.
Slaves and Chasquis.
Collecting tchotchkes.
Nice.
Nice joke, dude.
So yeah, they didn't have. Yeah, the fastest thing were themselves. So.
I mean, that makes sense.
As efficient as that gets.
They didn't have motorcycles then?
Oh, not yet. No.
Weird.
Now, if you go down there, everything's a motorcycle.
That feels true a little bit, doesn't it? Or a scooter.
So anyway, that's what we got. So even today, there's still several paths that are in existence that were used by the Chasquis.
Wow.
And it says there are trails that allow one to travel along these paths and to experience the distance and terrain that the Chasquis travel. And I'm even willing to bet that some of their little edifices are still intact that they would store food or just rest in.
Sure, at least one of them, I bet.
There's got to be. I mean, it's such a cool piece of history. I'm sure some have been preserved or like rebuilt and things like that.
Yeah.
Especially if there's some of their paths are still there. But so yeah, you can go down there and walk the Chasqui path today.
Wow.
See how fast you can do that.
Probably much slower.
A mile and a half uphill.
Probably much slower because these dudes had one freaking job.
Yeah, and they were also just running everywhere anyways.
Yeah.
Right?
They didn't have another alternative.
No, a mile and a half was easy.
If you used your hands to run upside down every day, you'd be pretty damn good at running upside down with your hands.
Oh.
I meant that as just an allegory, but I guess that's what they did. Isn't that what you said?
Somewhere in there. We didn't cover it in depth, but...
Isn't the fastest way to run through the Incan Empire?
On your hands.
On your hands.
Yeah. Less suspicious.
Can I go on another tangent really quick?
Let's hear it.
Do you remember Coach?
I sure do, yeah.
So...
Our junior high health teacher.
What was he famous for?
How blonde his hair would get in the spring.
Oh, no.
Yelling the word...
Oh, no. Most famous for.
Boy.
How is this not the first thing that jumps right to your head?
I don't know.
This has nothing to do with the story I'm about to tell.
I took his class on varying levels like 4 times.
Jack's shoes.
Oh, his freaking Jack shoes, bro. How could I forget?
This dude would buy brand new Nikes off the shelf and then turn them into Jack shoes, which are just basically...
He'd turn them into slip-on shoes, slip-on sandals.
You'd cut the toe off and the heel off, and then you just have a pair of sliders.
Yeah.
That cost way more money than
way more money. Like he'd walk in. I mean, this was before like the Jordan craze like they are now, but I mean, brand new Nike basketball shoes. Yeah, not just like basketball shoes.
Yeah.
So there's tons of padding and stuff like that.
And they look ugly as sin because they're just...
He'd chop the heels off and chop the toe off so his toes could breathe.
Yep. He thought they were so cool.
Wear them to school.
I ran into him probably 8 years after we graduated.
Wow.
High school, which would have been even further past when we had him, I guess, because he was junior high. Mm-hmm. But I ran into him like St. George, Utah, and like in like a Walmart, and he was wearing his Jack shoes there.
Oh gosh.
I was like, Coach Jacks, and he's like,
like, how'd you know?
Like leathery as he always was. Anyway, he told us a story. He told us so many crazy stories in his classes, but he told us one time. He claimed that he had a friend who had lost his legs at the waist.
Okay.
And so he'd made like a custom pair of pants that he would put on that were obviously very short because he didn't have legs, but it just had like a big rubber pad on the bottom.
Okay.
And then, because then like he could stand up basically by setting his torso on the ground, right?
Sure, yeah.
But then because he didn't have legs, like his arms were so freaking ripped.
Yeah.
And so I don't even remember all the details of the story other than he said that they went hiking and then they took this friend and his friend was wearing like cut off gloves.
Yeah.
Which is a weird detail that I remember still all these years later. But he was wearing cut off gloves just hauling up this hill. And he said that he was so much faster than all the other buddies that he got up there like a half hour before everybody else. They got up and their legless buddy was just chilling.
Can you imagine if you're
the horror show watching that?
You're someone coming from the other direction on that hiking trail.
This
and you
maniac
see this
comes hauling up toward
charging uphill at you. I don't know if you believe in God, but you'll start believing pretty quick.
So fast. Yeah, dude. Especially when the guy gets closer and says, "Morning," and then keeps running past you.
Morning, as he's looking back downhill. Ooh, I can't even imagine. That would be so wild.
Too good, dude. We could talk for an hour just about Coach. I'm remembering now a story about him going through fields on a snowmobile with his buddy. And
I remember this
they
story,
ran through a barbed wire fence.
Yeah.
And then it cut his stomach open.
His whole stomach open.
That he could see his intestines. And like he was all good and he's okay to this day.
He survived it, apparently. I remember him telling us a story one time where he was training he got really into soccer. He's training for soccer. And
I haven't heard this one.
To get his kick stronger, he put a pulley like just in the rafters in like their barn or something like that. And then he'd attach weight to it and then his foot on the other end. He'd just practice kicking so that his kick would get more powerful.
Sure.
He said in a game, and this was like junior high or high school or something, like he had a breakaway to the goal. He was running right at the goalie. And he reared back and kicked that thing so hard. It hit the goalie right in the stomach, dropped him, like said it threw him back, dropped him. And when they fell down, he said you could lift up his shirt and read on his stomach, inflate to 9 pounds.
What?
Like it says on the soccer ball?
Yes. The weird thing is that he's saying that all of these, making these stories up to get street cred with 15-year-olds.
Genuinely, he's one of my favorite teachers.
I don't believe anything he ever said.
Oh, he's had crazy stories, but I loved his classes.
He told me once, this is the last story I'll share, and I want to see if it's even a thing. I've never even looked it up. Oh, I guess it is. I should know this. So.
Oh, well, I guess it is.
Well, he told us a story once, and he made such a big deal about he had this motorcycle that he'd bought from a buddy.
Okay.
And then, like, it's the first time he rode it. And he's riding this thing, and he made a really big deal that it was a 6-gear motorcycle.
Okay.
Very specifically, it's a 6-gear motorcycle. And so I just looked that up because we ride bikes.
It's important, right?
And mine's a 5-gear, and yours is a 5-gear. He's riding through this neighborhood, and then there's this big hill that drops down. There's a street and then a big hill, and then the hill drops down into another neighborhood down below. It's a cul-de-sac, right? So he's talking about how he's riding this motorcycle and he's ripping up the street up on top of the hill, and then tries to hit the brakes, and then the brakes don't work at all. So he just goes down this hill to try and slow down on the grass. And then he's going, and there's kids playing in these yards. And so he's talking about how he's dodging these kids on this motorcycle. Okay, and then here's the best part. So he gets down to the cul-de-sac, shoots through the cul-de-sac, and then is heading toward this house. And everything's happening so fast, he has no time to swerve. But he said that he went up to the side of the house on this bike. The front wheel punches through the siding on the house. He's going so fast that he hits the side of the house, and each knuckle breaks through a stud.
Holy. Wait, what?
Yeah, dude. Breaks through a stud, a 2x4, from each knuckle, and then he just blasts through the side of this garage wall into the garage.
Into someone's garage.
Yeah, and then the impact of blasting through the wall slowed him down to a stop inside of the garage. So he got off the bike in the garage.
That would stop him.
Yeah.
Just blasting through the 2x4s on the wall.
Yep, and they're perfectly aligned to the space that he's got, which is not up to code, by the way.
No.
They're like 16 inches apart.
No.
And your hands on a motorcycle are going to be like 24.
Wider than 16 inches.
Yes, dude.
Oh my
I think about that story like probably once a month, and that was like 15 years ago I heard that or whatever.
Almost. Holy cow.
So,
great memories.
should we invite him on?
Gosh.
Just to tell us his stories?
Yes. I wonder if we could find him.
We'll see if we can't find him.
Even if we could find him, if he'd remember us.
For sure he's on Facebook, dude.
Yeah.
For sure.
He's of that generation.
Yeah. He just bought the Trump sneakers on Facebook. I'm pretty sure we can find him.
Oh.
Well, all right. I think that probably about do it. What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, that's all I got.
That was Incan. What are they called?
The Incan Chasquis.
Chasquis. We also learned a little bit about court dwarfs. Sorry for the word there. And then we also learned about
castrados.
Castrados,
Yeah.
which we're going to have to come back to at some point because that's fascinating.
And the
Cigarette girls.
demise of cigarette girls.
Cigarette girls.
Come here, girl. How about a smoke?
Yikes.
How about a smoke from this smoke show?
Okay, before we are doomed to record our last podcast ever, let's go ahead and wrap up. You can catch us on any platform that releases podcasts.
Mm-hmm. You can check us out on social media at Low Grade Research Pod, and feel free to email us any of your questions or topics you'd like to hear from.
Yep.
Or hear about from us.